for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. I'm Jim Cardle. We're just halfway through the 2017 legislative session here in Austin, and so far one of the biggest debates has taken place on the Senate floor regarding SB 6, the Texas Privacy Act. Sometimes referred to as the bathroom bill, it's authored by State Senator Lois Kolkhorst from Senate District 18, and we're pleased to be able to visit at this crucial time with the author of SB 6, State Senator Lois Kolkhorst. Senator Kolkhorst, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. It's great to be with you.
You have been hard at work over in the Texas Senate. Sure appreciate your taking the time to come in, and I know your time's valuable. I want to get right to it. SB 6, the Texas Privacy Act, better known as, or sometimes known as the bathroom bill, is your bill. There's been a lot of information, probably more misinformation about it, but if you can, let's start out and give us just an overview. What exactly did you intend to do? What does the bill do? And what was the prognosis of last week's effort on the floor?
Yeah, well, thanks first of all for calling it the Texas Privacy Act. I was talking today to a state representative who basically said some of the media has committed malpractice on the reporting of it, and that it's been so one-sided. So I'm happy to talk to you today about, and your listeners and viewers, about what Senate Bill 6 actually does. So Senate Bill 6 is a pretty simple bill, and it just basically says that no government can tell private businesses how to handle their restrooms, showers, locker rooms, dressing rooms.
Okay.
We exempt out private businesses from being told by any local governments how they have to handle their most intimate spaces. The other thing that Senate Bill 6 does is it says to school districts that in all multi-occupancy spaces, okay, these are intimate spaces, showers, dressing rooms, locker rooms, the restrooms in our high schools, that the multi-occupancy spaces like that, boys will go to the boys' dressing room and girls will go to the girls' dressing rooms. And if there's a special circumstance that needs to be handled, that the schools should handle that in a special circumstance way to provide a intimate space for someone that may be transitioning sexually to another gender. And then it also says in our public venues, all state agencies, which include higher education, that those rules will govern there the same, that your most intimate spaces that we as women, even boys, find ourselves in, that will be governed by the current birth certificate. Now in Texas, there is a way to change your birth certificate, but as we look at gender identity, and as you know, we have learned that there might be 400 genders according to some people. We're going to just simply say for privacy, for intimacy, for teenage privacy, for women's safety, that we're going to go on the current birth certificate, and that's what should govern. There are ways that if cities or counties or public spaces or school districts don't adhere to this, then the Attorney General can step in. But there's a long process and lots of ways to correct if something's going wrong. So no person is really penalized, but it's the agencies making sure that they implement the rules as we have proposed in Senate Bill 6.
So I hear you mention the word intimate places a couple times. That's an aspect that may or may not have been part of what's been discussed publicly about this. But I saw that you said the other day in the paper, I think the people of Texas expect boundaries between sexes. That seems to be what you're getting at here. And the fact that genders per se are not, you're not born with a gender. You're born with chromosomes, and genders are psychological or physiological attachments that people can come to. Has that come out during the debate? You mentioned 400 some genders, the whole idea of genders versus sexual anatomy and that type of thing. Talk about that a little
Well,
bit.
I think when I talk about intimate spaces again, these are the places that we find ourselves in an undressed, in an undressed state. Whether you're in a restroom, a locker room, a dressing room, a shower. So you have to think about the boundaries. Sometimes we think about teenage privacy and how difficult it is. I was an athlete. I remember in 7th and 8th grade, the first time that you actually changed in your gym clothes. I think that there are some boundaries that need to be there, that I don't think boys and girls being in a locker room together is a very good idea when you're a teenage, whether you're going through puberty or you're mature. That those are not good ideas. One witness testified about don't take away the innocence of children, the struggles that we've seen in Dripping Springs with the demands of one family wanting their young biological boy who is transitioning to become a female access to the girls' restroom, and that parents didn't know that was happening until their young children. We had Shiloh who testified during the committee hearing that's one of the little girls impacted by that. So we want to be sensitive to everyone, and that's why the bill allows for school districts to address the intimate spaces for special circumstances. Again, I think it's really important that, we create boundaries, and those boundaries have been long accepted throughout our history. And I think that we're just putting into statute what people expect.
Folks, I want to thank you again for joining us for this edition of Texas Insider TV. We're talking to State Senator Lois Kolkhorst from Senate District 18, the author of the Texas Privacy Act, SB 6. Senator, one other aspect that perhaps you have some thoughts on. Senator Dan Patrick said the other day that this law is aimed not at discriminating or not against transgenders. Talk about the pushback, I guess, is maybe a fair way to assess the criticism that's come back. Issues are always made into soundbite boilerplate.
Sure, and I think that's, it's been pretty lopsided that this is a discrimination bill, that this is a civil rights issue. And I want to speak to that for a second. Okay. So, in testimony, I'm going to use the quotes used in testimony. It's 0.003 of the population, which translates to 0.3%, that the bill actually doesn't say your original birth certificate. It shows deference to current birth certificates, and there's a pathway to do that in Texas.
And I think the numbers you're referring to, there's approximately 125,000 transgender Texans or thereabouts.
Yeah, they're all estimates. Okay. Some say that's overinflated. Some say that that's underestimated. Want to be careful, and certainly out of the 27 million that live in Texas currently, estimated, that there are some that have transitioned to a different gender. There are some that are transitioning. There are some that are non-binary, and we want to show deference to that. We also want to show respect to those that have long identified as a female. I'm a female, and if I could, Jim, move all the way back to why are we addressing this issue? Okay. Is because on May 13th, 2016, the Department of Education and the Department of Justice issued a letter, and if you want to just Google that, you can do Department of Justice, Department of Education, gender identity. It's again May 13th, 2016.
Another initiative of President Obama going around Congress is what
that is correct. It very specifically lays out that gender identity is something that is internalized. The letter goes on to say that this could happen swiftly or over a long period of time. Okay. That school districts were threatened that if someone identified, whether that's today or, and again, swiftly over a long period of time, they had to accommodate and allow them into restrooms, locker rooms, dressing rooms, overnight accommodations. So if you're going on a band trip and someone has identified as an opposite sex, you have to allow them to stay in the rooms with the opposite sex on your birth certificate.
Okay.
It goes into even athletics. And I spoke very passionately about what that meant as I was a college athlete, what that means to eventually, female sports. And the very essence of, and this was written about Title IX, the very essence of Title IX, which was to give women the ability through a long series. Title IX kind of became the real thrust of how women's athletics has increased.
And is funded equally.
Yeah. In 1971, 1% of the college athletic budgets were being spent on women's athletics, and today it's over a 600% increase in participation. Great strides. But if we have no boundaries, and that a man can say, and I know that the NCAA has kind of a protocol, but I still would challenge that to say I think that women should play women's sports. So I really passionately spoke to, this is as much a women's rights issue, and so we want to show respect for all. We don't discriminate, and that's why the bill was very carefully crafted.
You mentioned women's rights. You're a native of Brenham.
Mm-hmm.
SD 16 goes, or 18 goes all the way down to the coast. What is the mood of Texans? What are you hearing? Not necessarily demonstrations in front of the Capitol, but feminism seems to have been sidetracked by some of the national LGBTQ. But yet Texans, when polled on this, seem to be at least 50% supportive of what you're doing. What do you hear?
Way over that. So Republicans really into the 70s, high 70s on this issue. Democrats over 50% support. Really? Keeping men out of the women's restroom. African Americans, huge. I mean, we're into the 70s there, 70%. Hispanics, over 60% support this bill. All the demographics. Actually, Anglo Democrats are the least supportive. So 80% of Anglo Democrats are against the bill, but they're really one of the only stratas that is. So when I go home, people, they're because it's been such a big media thing, they usually whisper to me, this is what they say, I'm with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, but they don't want to talk about it out loud because, again, we're talking about intimate spaces. Mm-hmm. No one wants to talk about, I've had so many women tell me, I lock the door, the bathroom in my own house. I don't even want my husband in the bathroom when I'm in the bathroom. And so, again, a sensitive bill, there's been a lot of jokes about it. People go, well, why are you doing this? Wasn't everything working fine? I had a state senator say to me the other day, I just wish that May 13th letter had never been issued because school districts were doing a really good job of handling this on a case-by-case basis, but it pushed too far and it brought it into our realm. So when that letter was rescinded by the Department of Justice and the Department of Education under President Trump, it said that this is a state's issue now. A state handles education issues and local issues. And that's why, again, it's been, thrust upon us to give some guidance. And I just want to go about this in a common sense way. I brag about being a country girl from Brenham. I think that this is just common sense, that we put some boundaries. And what's been little reported is that there's been 4 incidences here in Austin in Travis County since September of women and girls in restrooms. Okay, where in a local HEB there was a man that had entered the restroom and was taking pictures of a young girl that was underage girl. There was in a school, a private school, where a little 4-year-old girl was sexually assaulted in a restroom. There's 2 other incidences where an 18-year-old girl in a public library was attacked and only saved by the grace of God by a lady who was able to get her feet and pull her out from underneath the bathroom stall. 4 incidences here in Austin in just a few months. And while reported in the media, nobody's made a big deal of these incidences that keep happening in Target. You've seen what's happened in Target. 2 cases in Dallas right after in April when they said we're going to have basically gender neutral dressing rooms and restrooms, and there were 2 cases of women having pictures taken of them just in Dallas. Those are reported, and you've seen that there's been a reaction, obviously, to Target where we've seen their stock fall. The last time I checked was over 30%, at a time when we see the stock market at all-time highs.
You mentioned common sense. There's nothing common about common sense anymore, and now we go to the House. So appreciate your efforts there and on this issue, but I want to touch on one other thing finally before letting you go get back on the Senate floor. You're a member of the Senate Finance Committee. Big issue of the state budget this year, a little bit more difficult than last time. Senate's been meeting daily for the past 10 days, 2 weeks, beyond that actually. What's the outlook for the Senate
Let me
budget?
say something, Jim. We started right after committee were signed in early, or just after mid-January.
Okay.
I cannot stress enough how hard we've worked. I want to give my compliments to Senator Jane Nelson. She has created different work groups where we went in and we tried to look at savings in not just Medicaid, but in every other aspect that we provide health insurance. We also had a work group that looked at education. We had another work group that higher ed special items. We have scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. This budget is as tough as 2003, but no one has made a big deal of that. And I'm just amazed. This is such a tight budget. So I think that we're going to go to the Senate floor with a tight budget. There are some people that are criticizing. I'm simply here to tell all of you the money is extremely slim. When you say that, we're the 10th largest economy in the world. We're bigger than Russia. On the flip side of that is that we are not going to go to the Senate floor with a budget that is not a balanced budget. Our state constitution demands that. We are being very careful about the rainy day fund and not asking for a vote out of that. That's our savings accounts. We're really trying to stay within that biennial revenue estimate, and with that, it's going to be difficult, but we were able to do it. I want to give my compliments to Senator Jane Nelson and her leadership. I want to give my compliments to the Senate Finance. So we'll finally get that bill over to the House, and they've been doing work as well, and then we'll go conference on the differences in the budget.
Well, speaking of slim budgets and time, we are out of time. I'm going to have to let you go and leave it at that. But folks, we sure appreciate State Senator Lois Kolkhorst from SD 18 coming in and visiting with us today. Senator, thanks a bunch.
Thanks for allowing me to be here today. Enjoyed it.
Remember, folks, you're either an insider or you're not. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Jim Cardle.